My name is Debbie Brookstein. It's November 5th, 1997, and I'm interviewing Mabel Katske. Mabel, could you tell me your name, including your maiden name?
Mabel Slutskin Katske.
How is Slutskin spelled?
Slutskin, Slutzkin.
And your birthplace and birth date, please?
Omaha, December 21st, 1916.
1916.
Yeah, I'm 80 years old now.
Tell me about growing up in Omaha.
Well, when I was little, I lived in South Omaha. I was born down there. And then when I met my husband, he moved me north.
When you lived in South Omaha,
Yeah.
what neighborhood? Do you remember the street?
It
You
was
lived on
24th and U.
24th and U.
And the Newmans had a grocery store across the street. The mother was an aunt to my mother and father. My mother and father were first cousins. And so the Newmans are related to me.
Now, who were your parents? What were their names?
Minnie Rose Slutskin and William Slutskin. They came from a little town in Russia. And they came to Omaha because of Mrs. Newman being here. And so they came here. She was an aunt to both my mother and father. And so all of her kids were related to me.
And so what kind of work did your father do?
He was a fruit peddler. At one time he had a grocery store. And that didn't work out good. So then he started working on his own. He had a truck. And he bought fruit and vegetables at the market, and he had customers that he called on regularly. And he kept a list of who owed him money. And my brother, when he was here, he remembered after my dad died, my dad wrote down everything in Jewish, and so he couldn't make it out. So he asked my brother that was crippled, worked with him. Who did he mean, and where do they live? And he went there, and he says he collected from everybody but one person. They said that he had paid him, and so he wasn't going to argue with them about it. So that was it.
Did your father have a name for his company?
No, it
No.
was just his own.
And what about his grocery?
Grocery he had with somebody else, and he never got along too good with partners. He always took the money and he did the work.
Who was he partners with?
I don't remember now. So anyway, that's the way it was.
Mm-hmm. What were some of the other businesses in the neighborhood around 24th?
Well, they had, up the street was, Greenberg's had a store, clothing store. Philip Greenberg.
Was that Philip's department store?
Yes. And then, so I knew all that family. I worked there at one time too.
You did?
Yes. And then I worked for Mrs. B at one time as a bookkeeper. When I got out of school, Mrs. B knew my mother. And she said, "What's Mabel doing?" She just graduated. She's looking for work. She said, "Send her to me. I'll put her to work." So she did. I didn't make much money in those days.
What schools did you go to?
I went to Brown Park, which is no more,
Brown Park?
yeah, and then South High School.
Mm-hmm.
That's there yet.
Mm-hmm.
And down from there was our synagogue.
What was the name of that synagogue?
I don't remember. My dad was involved in the building of it.
He was.
Yeah. Mr. Grelick was involved in it too. They used to lead the prayers.
Mm. Was there a rabbi there?
No. And so that was the way they had it in those days.
Uh-huh. Did you go to school there for a religious school?
No. My father couldn't afford it. So I didn't get that training. My brother did. He says, boys have to make a living, and girls, they don't need to. They get married and the husband takes care of them.
Tell me about your brothers and sisters.
I had one sister that died. She lived here in the home for a while. And then she got an infection. They wouldn't keep her here. So then she ended up in the hospital. From there, she went to St. Joe Nursing Home. And that's where she died.
And that's Bertha Schiff.
Yes. So you got that name, didn't you? From whom? Can I ask?
From you
Yeah.
and from here. Bertha Schiff, did she live in Omaha while she was
Yes.
married? Mm-hmm.
She was born in Europe, but she was a little one when my mother came here.
Mm-hmm.
And then my mother had another boy out in Europe, and he died too. He was in the home for a while, up north.
Mm-hmm. What was your brother's name?
Abraham Slipskin. So that's it. Then I have a younger brother that lives in Long Beach, California. He was here to see me not long ago, and he talked to Milton the other day when Milton was visiting me with Judy, and he said after I have my surgery, he's coming here with his wife to see me.
Who is your brother out in L.A.? What's his name?
Harold.
Harold.
Yeah. And he's really a good brother. He does my income tax for me. Won't charge me any money.
Tell me about growing up with them.
Well, we had a nice life. It was simple, not a lot of frills. And that was it. I don't know what else I can tell you. We had a neighbor that lived next door that went to school with my sister. He wasn't Jewish. He called me all the time. He used to call my sister. And he came to see her once here. And he was very unhappy when he saw her about how she was doing. But he was calling me all the time since I moved out of my house. I lost track of his number, and I don't know how to get in touch with him.
Who were some of the other people that lived in the neighborhood that were Jewish, besides the Newmans?
Gorelick,
Gorelick?
yeah. You know Etta Epstein? That was her folks were there.
It was Etta Gorelick?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Who were her folks?
Ben and Edna Gorelick. My mother's maiden name was Gorelick, too.
Anyone else?
And the Kaplans. They're not in Omaha now. The old folks lived out at the other home together for a while. And that was it. But that was all that was Jewish in the neighborhood.
Did you go to the Jewish Community Center growing up?
Yeah, I'd have to take a streetcar. We didn't have buses then, a streetcar. And we went there that way.
Where was the Jewish Community Center located?
On 24th and Dodge. Did you know that?
What was
Okay.
it like then?
Well, I don't know. It was just different than it is now.
What kinds of things did you do when you went there?
I was in a group that put on plays. And my kids' pediatrician, his wife, was in charge of that.
Who was that?
Yar, Dr. Yar. So his wife did that. We put on plays,
Mm-hmm.
and Frances Blumkin was in there for Frances Bat, and there were several others. But
So you enjoyed acting growing
Yeah.
up?
And I went everywhere with Bernice Gorelick.
Bernice Gorelick, your neighbor.
That's Ella's sister. She lives in Kansas City now. So I think when I go there for my surgery, she might be able to come up and see me.
Who were some of your other neighbors and friends growing up?
I don't know, there was a Delapex, that's the one fella I told you that was here. He was always close with our family. My dad loaned his mother money when she needed it. And so he knew that she'd pay it back.
What about girlfriends in high school?
I don't know where they are now.
Who were some of them?
Frances. I don't know what her married name is now.
What was her maiden name?
You lose contact with somebody and you can't remember.
Anyone else?
Well, Bertha Greenberg. That was not from the Phillips department store. Her father also had a clothing store. And so she went with me a lot of places. But she always had to check with her folks if she could go. If I went, they said she could go.
Was the clothing store in the neighborhood also?
Yeah. It wasn't too far from Phillips.
Do you recall the name?
There was no name to it that I know of. And my husband worked there at one time. So I knew him that way, too.
Who was your husband?
David Katske.
And where did the Katske family grow up?
I don't know, they lived north.
In Omaha?
Yeah. And I was South Omaha. When I married David, he moved me to North Omaha.
How did you meet David?
I think I was with somebody else on a date, and he was in the car, and they all said, "I know you," and he said, "I know you." I said, "You don't know me." But anyway, we got to know each other pretty well. We ended up getting married, and we have 3 sons.
Where did you get married?
Where? In Des Moines. My husband had an uncle out there, so we went out to his place, and we got married there.
And then you came back here and settled in North Omaha?
Yeah,
Where did you move to? Where did David move you to?
with his mother. I lived with her for a while.
What was her name?
Sophie. Everybody asked me, "Did you marry the redhead's son?" And I said no, and when I told her, she says, "Yes, you did, because I had fiery red hair when I was young."
And then what was David's father's name?
Milton, or Malach in Yiddish. And Tony Katske was also an aunt. She lived to 103. So that's not on our side of the family that lived that long. It's on his side. I mean, married.
Did he have any brothers and sisters?
Yes, he had 1 brother and 1 sister, Rose, and she married Harry Freed. You remember him? Yeah. He ended up in the home here. And when my husband had to come here, he got his bed. It was a weird feeling. You know, Mary Fellman? That's her uncle,
And then who was David's brother?
Irving.
Irving
And
Katske.
he married a Chicago girl, and they lived there until he retired. They moved to Boca Raton, Florida. So I hear from her all the time. He's got Parkinson's, and he also has Alzheimer's now. Not so good.
Tell me about your life with David.
It was wonderful. He was always good to me, and we always got along very well. And we had 3 sons together, Milton, Melvin, and Jerry. You know Jerry. You know Milton? Yeah. And Melvin you don't know. You know Melvin? Okay.
What kind of work did David do?
Dave worked for the government. He was a clerk. And now I get his retirement. And I get his Social Security.
Did you work after you were married?
For a little while, not too long.
Who did you work for?
Mrs. B.
Mrs. Blumkin.
Yeah. We always called her Mrs. B.
Mrs. B.
Yeah.
Where was her furniture mart then?
On Farnham Street. And then she moved it to 24th. And from there she moved out way west.
Were there very many people working for her at the time that you worked there?
No, there weren't too many. But things, as the store grew bigger, she had to get more help. And then her sister worked for her too. And she comes up here, so she stops to see me all the time.
Who's that?
Ann Rosenblatt. So she says, I've known Mabel since she was born.
What synagogue did you belong to as a family with David and your 3 sons?
Well, Beth Israel at one time, and we moved to Bethel. And now I'm still with Bethel.
Mm-hmm. Where was Beth Israel when you first joined?
Where it is now. And I think they're talking about moving west.
Who was the rabbi when you first joined Beth Israel?
Rabbi Nadoff.
Who was Cantor?
I think Bettman.
And did your children go to religious school there?
Well, they went to the center. They had religious school there.
Do you recall who any of their teachers were?
No. I think my husband had Judah Wilson, who just died recently. And I think maybe my boys had him too for a while. What else do you want to know?
What about your children? What kinds of things did they do growing
They
up?
do growing
as
up?
little children. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. They played marbles,
Mm-hmm.
and they played baseball, and they used to throw a ball back and forth to each other out there where we lived.
Did you eventually move out of Sophie's home?
Yeah.
And then where did you move?
I moved to the North Project.
Housing
Torn
project.
down now, yeah,
Mm-hmm. Was that where the Logan Fontenelle homes were?
yeah,
And is that where you had your family?
yes.
And then where did you live?
1816 Paul Street.
Okay.
So,
And you had all 3 children there?
yeah. They're 4.5 years apart in age. And I enjoyed having them.
Were there any other Jewish families in that area at the time?
No, not that I know of.
Do you remember any of their little Jewish friends? They might have met through religious school.
Because I didn't go, they went. My husband had Judah Wolfson for a teacher when he went.
What did you do on the weekends with your family?
Oh, once in a while we go to a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And in those days, when you said movie, you got a stage production too,
Mm.
which was very nice.
Tell me about the theaters in Omaha at the time.
There was the Orpheum, and I can't think of what the others were. But the Orpheum used to bring in, they'd show you a movie and have a stage production, which you don't see now.
Where did you shop?
I shopped downtown, Brandeis, Kilpatrick's, and Goldstein Chapman.
Do you remember any of the people who worked there at the time?
No. It's been a long time, and I don't go shopping in those. They're not there anymore, those stores.
Mm-hmm. What about for your daily grocery shopping? Did you keep a kosher home?
Yes. And I used to shop at my brother-in-law's store. Sam Schiff had a grocery store
Where at?
close to where we lived. And if I wanted anything in a hurry, I'd run over there and get some milk or something like that. And it was just 2 doors away from where we lived.
On 18th?
Yeah.
Did Sam and Bertha Schiff have any children?
One daughter. She lives in I hear from her regularly. She calls, or I call her.
What's her name?
Shirley Loppheimer. So she calls me, or sometimes I call her.
Mm-hmm.
When she heard I was in the home, she sent me a plant, which is in my room. When you stop in, you'll have to see it.
And then what about your brother? Did he stay in Omaha? for
My
a while?
younger brother,
Mhm.
no, he's in Long Beach, California.
Did he move there right away after high school?
No, he lived in, he got a job with Union Pacific. And they sent him to East to work. And the lady that he roomed with, she used to tell my mother that he was immaculately clean. She never had to worry about him at all.
When you and David were married and as you had your children, who were your friends? Or people that you saw regularly?
I don't remember now. But I got acquainted with the neighbors where I lived.
Mm-hmm.
One of them's here in the home now because she fell in her tub and had some stitches taken in her head.
Who was that? Who were your neighbors?
Bernice Falk. And I have one next door that I talk to regularly. Their name is Sonderman. John and Donna Sonderman. And one that's across the street is Donna McCarthy. They check on me regularly. The Sondermans have come up to see me.
Growing up with the boys, do you have any special memories that stand out?
No. I know we had a good time there.
Where did they go to grade school?
They went to Kellam, and then they went to Central High School.
Mm-hmm.
And then Milton started going to university. He went to Creighton. And some of the Jesuits called my house for favors from him. And he enjoyed doing that.
And what did Milton study?
Law. So he's a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
And Melvin studied law. He's a lawyer.
Did he study at Creighton also?
No, he started at Northwestern. And then the
Is
Army...
that in Chicago?
Yeah. And then the Army wanted him, so he had to make a change, and so he enrolled at Nebraska University because they didn't have any ROTC program at where he was. So he came back here to go to Nebraska U, and that's where he graduated from. He worked for a judge for a while, Judge Delahan. He's no longer living. He always gave Melvin real high grades.
And then what about Jerry?
Jerry, he started at Nebraska U and finished at Creighton. Now he and Milton are together in a law firm.
Mm-hmm.
And Jerry and his wife are wonderful to me.
Jerry, married.
Cindy,
What was her maiden name? Was it Harris?
Sarah,
Sidney Harris Katske.
right.
Okay. And then what about your other sons? Who did they marry?
Melvin, he works for the First Bank now.
He works for First Bank.
Yeah,
In their law department?
yeah.
And-
He's the only lawyer they have here. They wanted him to come to Minneapolis last week, so he had to leave and go up there.
Who did he marry?
He married a Bucheister. They used to have a meat market on 50th and Hamilton, kosher meat market. Then they sold out. They couldn't get anybody to buy it. So that was gone.
Mm-hmm. When you were growing up, how many kosher meat markets do you remember as being?
There was one in South Omaha, Schlafer.
Mm-hmm.
That's where my folks bought.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to make the best corned beef in the world. And that's it. The rest were north, and I lived south.
Do you remember any of the ones that were north?
Yeah, my husband used to do the shopping because we lived with his mother, and she used to give him a list of what to get every day, every week. So he'd go and get whatever she needed. She did the cooking, and I ate there. She was a good cook, too. She'd come to Omaha to visit later. She always wanted to eat with me because she didn't like the way her daughter cooked.
So you enjoyed cooking growing up?
I did, yeah. I used to watch my mother when she cooked. My dad cut through the house and made a stairway up. We had the basement and upstairs. And I used to sit on the steps and watch my mother cook, and she was an excellent cook. So I learned how to make a lot of stuff from watching her.
So tell me about keeping a kosher home for your three sons. How you purchased your groceries, who you purchased them from.
Well, I purchased regular groceries from my brother-in-law, but he didn't have kosher meat. So my husband used to go to 24th and get it from family. I can't think of their name now. His mother was in the home for a while, too.
Would that have been Schukert?
Huh?
Would that have been Schukert?
No, not Schukert.
Okay.
Schukert got one later, and we went there for a while, too. Then he got in trouble. Because Rabbi Nadoff said that he was selling briskets for kosher that were not kosher. People didn't want to go there anymore when he said that.
Were you and your husband very involved in the synagogue?
No, he went to services regularly. I was home with the kid.
Mm-hmm.
He used to go every Sunday morning. Somebody would pick him up. We didn't have a car.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd take him and then bring him home later.
Did either of you do any kinds of volunteer activities with
No.
Jewish organizations?
No. We were busy with our own things.
So what was like after the boys left the house?
Very quiet. And I still miss them. But they keep in touch. Milton was up here with Judy Sunday to see me. While they were here, my brother called from Boca Raton, and he told him after I have my surgery, he's going to come with his wife here to see me.
After the boys moved out, did you move to another home?
No, he still stayed in the one we had.
Which was where?
68th, 68th and Jones.
68th and Jones.
Yeah,
And you moved there while the boys were growing up?
yeah. We moved there right when Milton was going to college, just started college. We moved there.
When did you change synagogues?
Oh, I can't remember now.
Is there any reason why you changed?
Not particularly.
So after the boys were out of the house, did David continue to work
Oh, yes,
for the government?
yes, until he retired. And then he was home.
Mm-hmm.
And he worked part-time at Brandeis. They had a shoe store. He worked there. Along with his other job, he used to go to work every evening.
When Brandeis was downtown?
Yeah,
Did he work in the federal building?
yeah.
So after the boys left the house, what did you do to keep yourself busy?
I don't know. I took care of my grandchildren.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any friends?
I had a few, and I still have a few.
Mm-hmm. Did you play cards or
No,
get together for
never
lunch?
did, never did.
Excuse me.
It's all right.
What did you and David do to keep busy?
He liked to read a lot,
Mm-hmm.
so he was busy reading all the time.
Mm-hmm.
He liked to read real in-depth books.
What about you?
I don't know what exactly, but I didn't read as like he did.
Mm-hmm.
I always said he was smarter than me.
Do you recall any of your neighbors on 68th Street?
Since when?
On 68th Street?
Oh, yes. Sonderman
Mm-hmm.
and McCarthy and And we had one next door, and he died. And somebody else moved in there. I kind of know who they are. They got a couple of little ones. And when you don't have anything in common, it makes a difference. But I remembered when some of them moved in, I greeted them. I made homemade cinnamon roll, and I took them over to them. You got a cold?
Excuse me.
You don't know, you're just coughing.
So tell me what happened after that,
After what?
after retirement?
He worked part-time at Brandeis
Okay.
yet. He continued.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to take me for shopping because I didn't drive then.
Mm-hmm.
And when the doctor told him not to drive anymore, he sold our car. And I was sitting on the front porch thinking, what am I going to do now? And I decided, I said, I'm going to see if I can take some driving lessons. And if I can, I'll get a license. And I just sold our car. Well, he bought one from Jerry. And I got my license.
How old were you when you got your driver's license?
And I was 64.
How did you learn to drive?
The guy just took me out once or twice.
Your sons?
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went over and got my license. When he took me over to get it, I didn't have any money with me. He says, I'll take your house if you don't pay me when we get home. So anyway, the fellow that took me out, the instructor gave me the money to get my license.
Okay. So then did you do the driving for the family?
Yes. Well, Milton knew how to drive, and Mabel knew how to drive, and Sherry knew how to drive. So I didn't have to drive them, and I just had to take me and David for groceries or whatever we needed.
Why did David have to stop driving?
He had Parkinson's, and the doctor told him not to drive anymore. So when they told him not to drive anymore, he brought the car home, parked it, told the neighbor next door he can't drive. He sent over somebody to buy it, and the guy made an offer, and Milton and David said no. So he got somebody else, and by that one he decided yes, the offer was good.
Mm-hmm.
So he accepted it.
Mm-hmm. How old was David when you found out he had Parkinson's?
I don't really know how old he was.
Do you recall how many years he stayed
He
at
didn't
home?
have tremors with his.
Mm-hmm.
He used to say, I got Parkinson's and you shake. Mine is not Parkinson's.
How long did he stay at home with Parkinson's?
Well, he was home until he was complaining that his hands were numb.
Mm-hmm.
And so we called the doctor. Dr. Goldner took care of him then.
Mm-hmm.
He says, bring him in and we'll take a look and see what's going on. First he told me it might be arthritis. So he sent me something for arthritis for him to take, but it didn't help. So he said, bring him back in. He took one look at him and sent him right to the hospital. What he had was spinal stenosis. He had pressure on the back of his spine in 2 places. And they did surgery on it, and it didn't help him. It made him worse. He couldn't move at all then. He couldn't feed himself. He couldn't sit up, and nothing. He was just total nothing.
And so then he came to the Blumkin home.
Well, they sent him first to St. Joseph Hospital because they didn't have room at the Blumkin home.
Mm-hmm.
So he was down there, and I used to go down there to see him all the time. And Rabbi Nader came all the time to see him too. And then finally, when they got room, they moved him up here. Not here, but the other one.
To the share home?
Yeah.
Was he in the share home?
No, he was here.
He was here in the Blumkin home?
Yeah.
Okay. And you visited him every day?
Yes. I came up to see him every day.
Mm-hmm.
For a long time, he understood what I said.
Mm-hmm.
And as time went on, he couldn't talk anymore. But they told me, don't say anything because he can understand what you say. If you don't want him to know what you're saying, don't say it.
Mm-hmm.
So I listened to the nurses
Mm-hmm.
here. They told me, don't say anything because he might know what you're saying. He can't hear you. You think he can't hear you, but he knows.
Mm-hmm. And then you spent some time here, a short period of time here at the Blumkin home.
With a broken leg.
With a broken leg. How did you break your leg?
I was cleaning a closet in my house. I climbed up on a stool, and then I fell backwards off the stool and landed on the floor. And I thought, what am I laying there for? There's nothing wrong. So I tried to get up, and I couldn't. So the only thing I could do was roll off, and I crawled on my hands and knees to the kitchen, to a phone, and I called Jerry. I always call Jerry when I have problems. So he came over, and he says, come on, you can hop, and I'll take you out. And I said, I'm not going that way. So he called the rescue squad, and they came and got me. They took me to Methodist Hospital, and the doctor that I was going to wanted me at Clarkson. And I didn't want to move again. I said, I'm here, I'm staying here. So that's what I did. So one of the other doctors from her office came to see me.
So you went home after a short recovery here.
Yeah.
You went back to your home.
Yes.
Right?
But they told me don't climb anymore.
Mhm.
And I didn't.
And then how did you end up back here again?
Well, I was coming over to the center for aerobics. I was walking out of there one day and I fell. And Rabbi Drazen's wife recognized who it was, and she went to the phone and called Cindy. And she came right up. I wondered how she knew I'm here. And she came up right away. And they told her to take me to the hospital and have me checked. And she took me there, and they told her not to leave me alone for 24 hours. So she took me to her house, and I stayed there until I finally came here.
Mhm.
It was more than 24 hours.
Tell me about Cindy and Jerry's family.
They have 3 daughters, Rachel, Naomi, and Aaliyah.
Mm-hmm.
They're 3 years apart in age, and they're darling kids.
What about Milton's family?
Milton has 1 daughter. She's married and has a baby. So
What's
I'm
her
a
name?
great-grandmother.
What is Milton's daughter's name?
Gail. And the son is Richard.
Mm-hmm.
He's engaged to a girl that goes to Harvard Law School. He doesn't want to practice law. He wants to teach law.
And what's Milton's wife's name?
Judy
Mm-hmm. What was her maiden name?
Brookstein, just like yours.
Mm-hmm. And then Melvin.
Melvin,
And what is his wife's name?
Paula,
Paula. Do they have children?
no. She's got multiple sclerosis
Mm-hmm.
and can't have any.
Okay.
But he takes good care of her.
Mm-hmm. So now you're a resident of the Blumkin home.
Yes.
What kind of activities do you enjoy here?
I go to an exercise class. I go to tea. I don't know, things like that.
Do you have some friends here?
I know some that are here. I don't know
Mhm.
everybody. I have one that lived in my neighborhood that came in here recently.
Mm-hmm.
She fell in her tub at home. She had to have some stitches in her head, and she broke some ribs.
Mm-hmm.
So,
What's her name?
Bernice Falk.
Mm-hmm. And who are you related to here?
Babe Dabrowski, she was a Newman, and Ida Belmont, she was a Newman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ida tells everybody we're cousins.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you're quite an avid exerciser, having taken aerobics at the JCC
Yes.
before you came here. And do you exercise every day?
Every day.
Mm-hmm.
They have exercise here every day, but the weekend they don't. And I miss it when we don't.
Thank you very much for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you.